Okie dokie, folks, and welcome back to Monday Night Shaw. We are live here on Love Pro Wrestling, or Love Wrestling, for the very first time. Um, yeah, we used to be over on Backbreaker Podcasts, but like I say, Mike had to shut down the podcasting network. But Love Wrestling was here, and they asked me to start doing Love Monday Night Shaws with them. So. We're
Pretty
here
cool.
and we're doing it. Yeah. And
Welcome.
on today's show, we have a brand new guest. My guest today has never been on an episode of Monday Night Shaw, whether it be on Backbreaker Media Network or Love Wrestling or elsewhere. So I'm very happy and honored to welcome the Bobby Sharp here. So, Bobby, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good, buddy. It's a pleasure to finally be here and talk with you.
Yeah, it's been a while, eh? You've kind of been just kind of getting back in there and doing the rounds again. You just returned from having a hip surgery.
Yeah. I had hip replacement surgery last July. So, and then when you think about before that was kind of the pandemic era. So 2020, 2021 weren't too many shows. And then July 2021, I had hip replacement surgery, total hip surgery, replacement surgery. But I feel great. Now I'm recovered and I'm back in the ring and things are moving along pretty.
So how long exactly did it take you from when you went under the knife to when you were able to return to the ring?
I think it's just shy of 11 months from the day of my surgery to the first match, because obviously I rolled around a little bit. Probably shouldn't have anyway, but yeah, about 11 months. Yeah, and I mean, like, I was waiting for that surgery. It was kind of like a wear and tear situation. It stemmed from a car accident where I tore the labrum in both my hips. That's just the tissue that the hip bone sits in around. You got a labrum in your shoulder as well. So I tore the labrum in both my hips. I was experiencing a significant amount of pain and stuff like that. I still wrestled. I was still doing things because it wasn't debilitating, but then it just got worse and worse. So the doctor suggested a cleanup type surgery, which is like a scope kind of thing where they go in there and they clean up the scar tissue and try and smooth the bone out so it's not as so jagged and so it fits better. So when they did that, I guess the arthritis was so severe, among other things, I got a bone degeneration disease. I don't really know what the science is behind that. Basically, the surgery was supposed to prolong hip replacement. It sped up the process to the point where I needed it ASAP after I got the labrum surgery. So it ended up working against me. But my doctor was very, very hopeful about getting the surgery. And like he recommended it. He wasn't saying, wait till I'm older, because I'm 33. So you don't hear about too many total hip replacements at people my age. So, yeah, he just wanted me to have a better quality of life, I think. So, but I'd say he was right, because like I feel, even if I wasn't wrestling, I feel so much better just day to day.
Well, I mean, like I'm surprised. I actually just assumed that you needed this hip surgery due to an injury sustained from wrestling. I wasn't aware that it was a car accident thing.
So I did have a hip injury. It's funny because like it confuses a lot of people, because when I was 18, I broke my pelvic bone. So a lot of people think, oh, okay, that's what led to the surgery. And I'm sure it didn't help, but I cracked the end of my pelvic bone in 2008, but it was the opposite hip. So this hip could have been damaged by compensation, but basically I've always had hip problems. I've always had delicate hips. So yeah.
How did you crack your hip?
I did an acai moonsault. And this would be a lesson to people that want to do big high spots. An acai moonsault to the floor. I was young and green, so I went before anybody was ready for me to go. I learned this after the fact that one of the guys that was catching me was blowing up and started throwing up or dry heaving or something. So I'm lucky I didn't land in the puke. But anyway, So one guy was dry heaving. One guy was seeing this happening and kind of was like, oh shit, and backed up. And then the third guy just was out of position. So when I did the moonsault, basically I just fell in between them, or my legs kind of clipped them, and I landed all on my end of my hip on the right side. Basically, I didn't land flat. I landed like twisted like that a bit, right on my hip, and so all the pressure on that concrete floor just cracked the end of the pelvic bone, and that was it. I didn't need surgery or anything after that. I just needed to recover. But yeah,
So,
I learned my lesson there.
yeah. So you haven't done any more acai moonsaults to the floor onto people that are cast out?
When I was at one point, I never tried it again either. But Teddy Hart had a little ring set up at some country home or something, and that was the first thing he was trying to get me to do. It was like, all right, because you have this fear, let's do a acai moonsault. So I was like, man, I don't think my career really needs me to hit an acai moonsault. Like I don't think that's what's missing. So it's like he made me do it like a couple. It's not that the moonsault is scary. It's the landing on my hip and hurting myself is what I don't want to do. It wasn't the moonsault I had an issue with, So it's like if I'm jumping on a crash pad, great. It feels great. But if I'm jumping onto three guys that miss me, it doesn't feel good.
I hear you. I was in Medicine Hat last month, and I did a suicide dive to the floor in one of my matches, and I smacked my hip on the floor when I hit the ground, and it was like, oh,
not a good feeling, and they're not.
Make sure I don't land like this next time I try one of these. Yeah.
No, and they're hard to recover from, even if you have a minor hip injury. Everything you do in your entire getting up and sitting down and lying down, everything's affected. So they're not easy to recover from, and they suck. So
yeah, even if it I obviously I'm not trying to bitch and complain because I didn't need hip replacement surgery or anything, but it was just it felt like a bruise right on the side of my body there, and it was just in that right in that position where you just feel it all the time. Yeah,
can't even sit. Yeah. Yep.
So you were able to make your big return. You returned at the Love Wrestling show there recently against the Thickness. And so how did that work out? Were you approached by Love Wrestling to make your return there? Did you get any other offers from maybe Squig or Metal or anybody?
Yeah. So it's kind of one of those weird, I wouldn't say weird, tricky situation. I think every promoter and every company was kind of aware that I was stepping away just to recover and repair. There was always interest. I would say almost every single company is kind of like, once you're ready, let us know, and we'll get going. On the outside looking in and not dealing with any of the politics or talking to anybody, just from the outside looking in, I've worked with everybody before, and I know I'm going to work with a lot of these guys again in the future. But when it came to Spencer, I really liked the product and the passion that he showed, and he's different. It's somebody new, somebody different, at least at this time. And I really like the passion that he showed for the product. And when I was returning, I wanted it to be kind of treated as a little bit different, something unique, I guess, or at least to be considered a big deal. And I think he was able to deliver on that, at least hype up the return and made me feel good about coming back. And then just. It's something different. His passion for wrestling is like makes you feel young again type of thing. So I thought it was a pretty cool experience there. As for Metals, I didn't know he was running a show until after I agreed to return for Spencer. So it could have been a bidding war, but at that time it didn't really work out. I'm not. When I posted the picture of me without my shirt on for the first time in like 10 months or whatever, in my thirst trap photo. That's when all the promoters were kind of like, hey, are you ready to return? And it took a lot. It took the wrestler, not the wrestler in me to because I wanted to tell them all, yep, let's do it. Let's go right away. And I was like, man, I don't want to take, because if I take all these booking, like I have the booking for Spencer and I want to see how I feel. And if I have to do it once a month, because I still want to do it, but if I'm going to suffer, it's not, it's worth it, but it's not worth it. There's other things I can do, but I can't just go wrestle for every single company. So I was taking it really, really easy there. So I took like one show for Spencer, one show for Squig, and then one show for Can-Am just to kind of get my feet wet and see how it feels. And I think things are feeling pretty good. I don't know when I'm going to start rolling to get like 4 or 5 shows a week, but I'm going to start rolling a little bit quicker as the months and weeks go on now.
I mean, it is cool how like when you went away, like just like pardon me, the landscape was completely different, and
Mm-hmm.
like now you're back, and it's like RCW has like almost like an open door policy type thing where like where a lot of the PWA wrestlers and
Yeah.
stuff, the guys like yourself are welcomed with open arms and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like, can you talk about like how that's just like different from it was before you left and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, like the exclusivity is like I don't want to say it's a touchy subject because it's one of those ones where you can find the argument on both sides. You can be like, there's a good argument for being exclusive in a city for guys our level, and there's a good argument for letting us work wherever we want to work for guys at our level too. Like, but at the same time, like they were so strict about it before, and I think everybody had their own little island in Edmonton, and then that was that. So that's if one positive came out of the COVID thing, it just made people realize you can't expect people to sit around and wait for you and not give them shows and then expect them to not take shows elsewhere. And I think it started to become the realization of like we don't need to be so strict. Like the exclusivity should almost be up to the individual as opposed to the promoter. Like if I was working for PWA, I should use enough common sense to know that if PWA is giving me the benefit to have a top spot, I should also know that if I'm going to other companies, I should protect my spot in PWA and not willing to just kind of throw it away or look good in one company and look bad elsewhere. If you know what I mean, that type of thing. And it should be up to the individual and the choice. If they want to work for every company, great. But then you should also know that it's your choice. If you're working for all the companies, you're going to be at that same level for them all. Maybe it's a top spot, maybe it's not. But I think it should be up to the individual wrestler and to use their own common sense to protect their spot. And if the promoter chooses not to use them, that's kind of up to the promoter in his own regard too. But the exclusivity thing is like if there's no contract involved, it's kind of hard to ask the guys to be exclusive. But at the same time, I get it because you want to offer a different product as a promoter. So it's nice to see that that's changed quite a bit because a lot of the guys are now getting a lot of work and a lot of guys are getting better very quickly. So hopefully, like not hopefully, I already know that the landscape of the top guys has completely changed and it's all fresh matchups now.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's cool how we're just like seeing like sort of almost open door policies across the
Mm-hmm.
board. I mean, I just saw Squig on Can Am like a couple of days ago, and I was like,
I was
oh,
on.
okay. So I'm gonna have to like keep my inbox open and let
Yeah.
Can Am know that I'm also available for.
Yeah. I was surprised to see him there too, and he had some pretty choice words for Vinny Fever. I guess they're wrestling in the steel cage come September 10th at the Pavilions. So for the Wild Rose Sports Association company, which should be kind of interesting. It's its own little super show right there. But
Yeah, why don't you tell us just like a little bit what you know about that super show that's taking place at the Victoria Pavilion? That's a big
yeah,
venue, right? Like that's one of the like
that's
historic venues
yeah.
in Alberta.
I'd say one of the historic venues as far as wrestling goes worldwide. The Pavilion is the Stampede venue. That they ran 70s, 80s, 90s, 60s, all that kind of stuff that Stu Hart ran. So the building has got some character. It really feels amazing being inside that building. And it's it's a I believe it's like a horse auction building where they bring horses and people bid on them or whatever animals. But it's perfect for wrestling because it's got the big dugout in the middle and then like people could sit all the way around it in seats and stuff. Um, I guess I'm happy more people are going to the Pavilion. I guess the Pavilion lowered their their rent costs because before it wasn't even worth renting there for some of these companies. But I don't know much about so the guy that's running the show, I believe he's involved with a lot of charities and bullying anti-bullying charities. So he just wanted to put together a little show, I guess a big show that helps benefit his charity, add some super matches, no egos. All the companies are involved, all the way from Monster Pro to RCW to Can-Am. So he's got an ECC. I shouldn't say that, but a couple of companies from BC and stuff are involved as well. Because you see, like you got Scotty Mac coming out as well. So I mean, he technically got quite a few top guys from a bunch of different areas. And he's bringing them all in for a super show. I think it's gonna be fairly unique. So curious.
Yeah, that's another like one of those things that I just like that's going on. Like, yeah, I consider like that's a super show, and then these Love Wrestling shows are kind of like super shows. Like we used to have
Definitely.
episodes of Monday Night Shaw that were just like Alberta like fantasy league, where we would book like a full show of like Alberta fantasy matches, and
Yeah.
it's redundant now because there's no point in ever doing like another episode like that because there's a card almost every month featuring people from all the
All the
major,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now there's just a couple dream matches left, but like, I think now it's a matter of mingling all the extra guys, all the imports. Because one thing that I like you're saying about these super shows here is that Alberta before 2020 really wasn't big on bringing in import talent. You know, we had our local guys, and then you might be bringing in like a Cody Rhodes level former WWE guy or something, but you weren't bringing in like Jody Threat, or you weren't bringing in like guys like that, Jordan Oliver, which he's bringing in, or like Willow Nightingale and stuff. So these are like not, I don't want to say they're not big names because they are, but they're great wrestlers and are on a higher level independently, but not a former WWE guy. But you're getting the chance to finally see these type of people in Alberta because none of these guys ever came here. Very, very rarely. If anything, it was just for CWE once in a while. So I think that part's pretty cool because now we can mix in some of these phenomenal independent talent in with our local guys. And I think the matches here, I don't think it's going to dry up. The next year, you're going to see some incredible matches locally for sure. It's just going to get better, yeah.
And I think that that's one of the other best parts about this whole thing, especially with like companies like Love Wrestling and like I'm sure Top Talent's going to be doing something like these companies that have like these uber like just great production values, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alberta guys are going to start to be seen by other people in other areas and stuff. Like that's one of the kind of issues that people perceive about Alberta wrestling is that it's just kind of happens its own little bubble
Yep.
out here, whereas other people, they just don't see it. But like with this kind of stuff going on, like the word's going to spread, man. Like I saw that video of MRB doing the big flip onto the ladder onto to Randy Myers and
Yeah.
Golden Boy Travis Williams. There is like, well, like this is all going to spread all over all online, and everybody's going to know this is MRB and he's Love Wrestling, and Love Wrestling runs in Edmonton.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I used to like in 2013, 2014, 2015, when I was trying my best to break out of Alberta, it used to be like pulling teeth to get articles in like PWI and stuff like that, getting rankings. And we were able to do it, but it was really, really difficult. You had to know somebody. So now now they're starting to cover Western Canada because they just recently talked about Love Wrestling and Spencer and MRB and stuff. And it's like, I always used to push for that because it'd be like, they would have the list of the top 10 Canadians. It'd be 9 guys from Ontario and maybe me and Scotty Mack or something. So it was like, is that really a list of Canada? Western Canada gets neglected so much, but that's another thing when we talk about like why I chose LPW and to come back is like the production values. Getting the word out there is so important, and getting those clips out there, because how can those clips go viral if they're not being posted? Because before 2020, you never saw clips pretty much ever. So now guys are starting to share these crazy spots, or these guys are starting to share their matches, or there's a lot of advertising and a lot of social media attention that goes to it. And then when you check it out, it's a nicely produced event. All of them, the matches are great. So I mean, like, yeah, the notoriety, I think, like, yeah, in 8 months, you'll be looking at this will become a 2-company town, and they'll be racing to the top spot here. But I think they will be viewed as like at independent level, a company you'll want to work for, and I might even start bringing Edmonton to the forefront again.
Yeah, is what in your opinion can the other companies do to stay relevant?
They have a lot of companies are behind production wise, I think, and that's a big thing, because a lot of the matches are great, and a lot of the shows themselves are really entertaining, and you're not going to get like a faulty bad wrestling show. But now it's all the bells and whistles are what's the difference between all these companies. Like even when you look at RCW from when they were a couple years ago to how the venue just looks well put together now. But then when you think about, it'd be great if they could get a venue with a screen But it's like, if that's the only thing missing, they're still putting on great quality shows. But to the average fan, when you have the bells and whistles, that's going to set some of these companies apart, you know?
Yeah.
So, because that's the biggest thing. Like, if you're seeing the similar matches or similar great matches, but if you see a big entrance and like they're trying to get pyro on some of these shows. So, I mean, like things like that, all presentation, it's all part of the wrestling presentation, the show of professional wrestling. So all that stuff's important. And the more you spend on having better production value, the more quality people will view your company. And I think that's what sets a lot of them apart. And some of them, I don't want to say want to fall back on the times, but they need to put effort. And they never like RCW puts a lot of effort into getting their production value up in small places that don't allow video screens, or other companies put really no effort into upping their production and think it's good enough. And I think that's a mistake. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I remember a time when we had RCW shows where it was literally like the ropes were kind of ratty looking and there was no ring skirts on the ring. You could see like underneath the ring from sitting in the crowd. There was no barriers. It was just like, I think there was a piece of string tied between two little poles to keep fans from crossing. And like, so just like the difference between that and what we have now is like night and day. But I do think, like, I agree with you. I think what RCW does is they're concentrating on putting on a good, like, live show for the people that are in attendance. Whereas a company like Love Wrestling, or I would have to imagine Top Talent. I don't know what their video setup was, but like I would have to imagine with that level of production value that, like, the home audience is given more consideration than just like the people that are there.
Yeah, and this falls into like all three of those companies do this extremely well, is that before the show even begins and you're coming in as a fan and sitting in a chair and you're looking around, you think it's part of the show. Like something people don't really realize, like the moment you pay for your ticket and you walk in through the door, the show has begun. So how it looks is part of the show too. So like you said, if you go and there's no ring skirt and there's, you know what I mean, the ropes are loose and there's like a little yellow rope separating the fans, you start thinking like your expectations go down. So why do you want to start with low expectations? If you want to have this huge, like Love Wrestling has the huge screen playing videos when you walk in, the setup's like a high rise type of thing. So you got balcony seating. Top Talent has everybody sitting on the stage with a big screen behind them, the lights and the ring look fantastic. RCW has his logo everywhere, and I think if he could get his logo onto like every single fan's shirt, he would. So you know it's an RCW show. He has a solid looking entrance and stuff. So I mean, like once you walk into these shows, you know it's something. You know it's a show. You feel good about being there. And I've been on those shows too. You just where you know it's kind of crummy and you don't feel as motivated. And sometimes I think like when a fan walks in and sees that, I go, what do you even thinking? Like you pay $15 and the ring is broken, you know? So
it's so true though. Like I remember when I went to like WWE when I was like a little kid. And I mean, like not super little, but I was a teenage kid. We went to WWE, and I think but Shane McMahon had just jumped off the Titantron onto somebody at SummerSlam or whatever. And we walked in, and we were like, "Look at the way this is all set up. I bet you Shane McMahon's gonna jump off that thing there tonight." You know, it's a house show in Vancouver. Shane McMahon's not jumping off nothing, right? But like this is part of the allure. Like you go in, and like the whole like setup is part of it, like you say. So like definitely when you walk in and like the ring skirts don't fit and it's you know,
disheartening. Even from the wrestler's point of view too, it's like if the fan goes and thinks that, trust us, we as wrestlers, we definitely know. Doesn't happen too much anymore. It doesn't happen as much as it used to. I think the dog and pony shows, while they still happen, like that one that just didn't happen in England here, but the dog and pony shows still kind of happen, but I find that I don't see them happening as much anymore, which is nice.
Yeah, there was a couple that were infamous around here. What they call Canuck Pro or whatnot.
Yeah, they're talking about, there's this company, the name escapes me now, but it's currently happening as of the show was supposed to happen today in Europe, and he had like Not Lana. Oh, the Samoan girl booked for the show, and like Mojo Rawley, and so she the 6 foot tall girl, but she posted how
Is
she's
this
not gonna
Nia
Nia
Jax?
Jax, yeah, that's it, Nia Jax. So
Yeah.
she posted how she's not gonna be part of this show and blah blah blah, and like bunch of guys like that were going to be on this rant. Authors of Pain, I think, were running it, and then all of a sudden, I guess, according to them, the promoters, everybody got paid, but they decided not to run the show out of respect for the fans or something weird. A very blanket,
Out of respect for
like
the money you've given us, we're not going to give you a
exactly
show.
nothing about refunds, nothing. So this is all ongoing currently, but this is exactly like Canuck Pro. And if I remember, like I thought Canuck Pro was a fantasy, like one of those fantasy companies, because sometimes these freaking guys have fantasy companies on Twitter and they make it as legit as possible. There used to be,
Okay.
there used to be this. I don't know what used to, but anyway, sometimes fans will like role play as wrestlers, I guess, on Twitter. And there was a fan that picked me to role play as me, which is okay, whatever. So he's me in his little fantasy league. But when you click on his Twitter account, he made it me, and it's my name and my pictures and stuff. Whatever, no big deal. But then he started sending tweets to like Jim Ross and a picture of me and Jim Ross, and like stealing my pictures with guys like that and sending it to them. And then he would make a post like, "Great to see Jim Ross." But then he would make another post about like calling Steven Richards a piece of shit because he's feuding with him in the company.
Oh,
so then I messaged the guy, go, "Hey man, I understand what this is, but it doesn't say role play anywhere on your account. Your Jim Ross doesn't know who I am really to know that this isn't me. You know, like he could think this is me."
Yeah.
The guy's like, "Oh," he went off, "Oh, we're just playing, we're just having fun, blah blah blah." So it ended up being a whole thing there. I had to block them and report them and all this kind of stuff. But it was just like, but this is what I thought Canuck Pro was, like a fantasy company. They were sending me messages like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna wrestle like, oh god, I can't remember who my partner was gonna be, but I was gonna wrestle the Young Bucks." And I'm like, "Oh okay, I guess it's obviously not gonna happen." And then like, I don't know if they sold tickets, and
well, see, it was like I know there's a bunch of people that are sitting out there that don't even know what we're talking about, but there was like
there's a lot to this, yeah.
There was this big show that was advertised a couple of years ago to come to Calgary, and it was set to feature a bunch of like high level Indian guys, like the Young Bucks that you were talking about. I think Penta was advertised for this, and like
some wild ones,
yeah, like, and the tickets were expensive too. Like I believe it was like $200 for a ticket or something, and then they just never did the show.
Nope, just disappeared. And I want to say they started selling tickets, and then all of a sudden nobody was getting replies. And I remember I was sending out messages to people who were showing interest to go, "Hey, this is a scam. Don't buy these tickets because this show ain't happening." So yeah, and I have my thoughts on who was behind it, but I guess we'll never really know if she was or wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, some people have heard about the speculation about like I mean, I'm not gonna.
I can't confirm. Yeah. Well, can you confirm? Oh,
I mean, all I've heard is that they might have a legacy of some sort.
So yeah, like so we were all, as wrestlers, we all were like, "Oh, this is just this again," But like, what bothered me was like the fans don't know, and now you're painting us all with a bad light. That's why I get, like other guys would be, "Oh, just brush it off." But it's like, well, no. For me as a wrestler, where I like, as much as I enjoy wrestling, and I also can make money wrestling, but us all as professionals should view this as this company potentially is stepping on us all making more money, because people aren't going to go, "Oh, it was Canuck Pro that ripped me off." They're going to think it was professional wrestling, and we're all screwed. So when I see things like this, I get upset and I go public and be like, "Hey guys, this is bullshit." Don't think this is what wrestling is and stuff like that. So, and I wish more guys would, because if we banded together against dipshits like that, you never know. Maybe they'll stop being dipshits. I mean, probably not, but we can try.
Yeah, it's one of those things, right? Like, just like it makes the whole like the whole business as an overall look bad, you know. I mean, it's kind of like we were talking about, like when you show up at the show and there's no ring skirt on the thing and there's no effort been put in. Like, I mean, it's disheartening because it kind of like, it's like, okay, you could have just spent some money and got some ring skirts, and it would have looked way better.
Yeah,
Like,
a couple $100, and you probably would have saved a couple fans that would want to come back just from the moment they walk in. We're not already fighting an uphill battle where it's like they already think it's going to be shitty wrestling, and then the wrestling's fine, but they can't get over the broken ring. Yeah, exactly. So just take pride, guys. Just got to take pride in what they do.
Yeah, 100%. Bobby, you've been wrestling for some time now. You've been wrestling since you were what, like 14, 13 years old?
I had my first match 19 years ago when I was 14, and I started training in 2001. 2001 in Edmonton, yeah.
And did you train with Monster Pro Wrestling, or were you trained with Teddy Hart? Now,
no, I was one of the guys that approached Teddy about training when I was 13 or whatever, but never trained with him at that age. No, I broke it. So this was pre PWA and before Stampede, or this was during the time Stampede was doing its second run in Calgary. There was an Edmonton company called Canadian Championship Wrestling, CCW, run by a gentleman named Robert O'Keefe. He basically, one of his referees was my best friend's dad. And then, of course, he was able to arrange, like, there were four of us, so we were all like 12, 13-year-old kids. And it was arranged where the four of us would pay whatever, a drop-in fee to a guy named Chris Wayne, and he would train us. Chris Wayne is from Sexsmith. I don't remember exactly, but not from Edmonton. So he couldn't train us every single day. So we usually just would wrestle with like the Insane Irishman and roll around a little bit, JD Michaels, Adrian Walls. So a year of my training was with CCW originally, like the precursor to PWA and all that kind of stuff. They had a show where they brought in a big name and he didn't show to the show. So basically it folded the company. But Massive Damage, the late Max Power and King Lao were three other gentlemen that were just coming to Edmonton and wanted to start a wrestling company that was, its business model was that it was a training camp attached to a company. So basically they would, I mean, it's smart when you think about it on his point of view, but they would train their wrestlers and then they would create their own wrestlers for their show. And they bring in other guys, obviously, to fill up the card. But that was the business model, was that they would train wrestlers. And then when he saw that there was a group of us, four or five of us under 18, he saw the idea of having the under 18 division. So instead of like a weight division, it would be a division for kids. And he thought, like, it's to a younger audience. You have bigger guys for the adults, and then you have like young teenagers that the kids can wrestle. And it worked. I mean, they got a lot of publicity and it got a lot of notoriety, and it got us into the ring at like 15 years old, which is awesome, especially for me at the time. So that's kind of how that all started. And then the thing about the under 18 division is that it can't last forever, because unlike weight, you will go over 18 eventually. You can't go back. So you lose guys, you got to replace them. But I mean, for the 2 years that MPW had it, it got a lot of notoriety. And I know Stampede, after we did it, tried their own version of it too. So that's kind of how I knew it worked, is that other people started doing it.
Yeah, they had the like the Mat Rats thing. Were you at all involved in any of that?
Right before they shut down, I was going to be booked on some of their shows, but they were doing pilots. Like, I don't know if they did two, but they did the one pilot test, which is basically they were just trying to sell I don't know who promoted it, but they're just trying to sell the show itself and get a network. And I believe Eric Bischoff was involved, and Don Callis and Joey Styles might have been involved. But they had shot the pilot and had paid the audience. It was a whole wild thing. It was almost like that MTV Wrestling Society X before that was a thing, but with younger kids. So it wasn't like, but it's the own unique type of wrestling. It's all unique. So yeah, because it was a bunch of younger athletes and younger wrestlers and stuff like that. So when they started, I was really, really young. I might have been 13 or 14, but we were being trained in the sense of like, okay, Mat Rats is where you're going to go once you guys are ready to get put on shows. And they had already been kind of talking about them with that. And then the company folded, basically, or just ran the one or two shows and never continued on. So that's kind of where, okay, if we're not having Mat Rats, we'll do our own thing. And they did the under 18s, which is basically what it was.
So were you just did you just stick with MPW until you went to RCW, or did you go to PWA first? Or
yeah, I guess this would have been around this is when all the companies wanted you to be exclusive. I have a philosophy about wrestling where it's like, if I'm someplace for too long, I don't like it. I feel like I'm spinning my tires. if I wrestle everybody that there is to wrestle and there's nobody new, I like moving on to a new company. So that's my philosophy. So I broke in with Monster Pro, and there's issues in the past, but I stuck it out with them for 5 or 6 years. It got to the point where there was a crew meeting, and the decision was, Massive said, we're not bringing in any more international talent. We have a good crew here, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized, well, if you're not bringing anybody in, then I'm the third most experienced guy on the entire roster. And it's like, yeah, it's great. I can learn how to carry the other guys, but I was 18, 19. I don't want to learn. I do want to learn, but I want to wrestle guys better than me, and I want to wrestle tons of guys better than me and different guys. So what I did then is I started getting out of Alberta, because I moved to Winnipeg and Manitoba. I wrestled in Ontario and Windsor after that. Went on tour a bunch after that. I came back to Edmonton, and then I started working for PWA just to get my feet wet there, because I never wrestled for them. But when things started taking off for me is that 2011, things were going really slow, and I was kind of feeling disheartened. The CNWA started in 2012 or 2011, and their business model really, really interested me, because they were going to run a lot of small towns. They're going to run a lot of a touring company, and they got a bunch of companies on board to kind of view like an NWA basically before I go into two. Basically, that's what it was. There were 10 local companies all agreeing to have a champion and blah, blah, blah. So what happened was I used to work I quit my real job at the time because it was night shift. I didn't want to do night shifts anymore. At the same time, the CNWA offer came up. So an offer was made to me that would pay my bills. Basically, I'd be given a salary to do quite a few shows. We're talking 100 shows a year. So then that's the offer I took, and that's kind of where I went after that. And so after that, I never considered myself official, hey, I'm a this guy, I'm a that guy, because when I did CNWA, I wrestled for every company, like Lethbridge, all the companies in BC, you got Thrash and All Star, and you got CWE and you got HRW and all these other companies. So that's kind of how I looked at it. I wrestled everywhere I possibly could as far as that goes. And then so that's kind of how that went. So I wouldn't consider myself a specific to one company type of guy.
Fair enough. Did you you mentioned that you went over to Manitoba and that you went to Ontario. If I'm not mistaken, were you not wrestling with Scott D'Amore and those guys? Learning at their wrestling school. Were you trying to get some inroads into TNA?
Yeah. So at the time, Global Force was kind of the partnered company with Can-Am Wrestling School. it's a Can-Am Wrestling School and not company, but because there's Can-Am in Calgary, but Scott's is the Can-Am School. BCW, Border City Wrestling, is the company. But I went down there because I wanted something different. I wanted something to try to advance my career. Unfortunately, when I went down there, my hips were already so bad that I just knew it's limited what I could attempt here. But I went down there. We trained with Scott. I started working for Global Force and doing a lot of their shows, and then a lot of local Ontario shows, which are all real big quality shows. Like when I started working for Border City out there, he was drawing 1,000 people, 1,500 people to their shows. So it was real wild. And then there was a company there called Destiny Wrestling in Oshawa, and they run not Oshawa. Regardless, it's at the Battle Arts Santino School, and his shows are top notch, some of the best shows I've ever been a part of as well. And we're always import talent, the first show I was there, he had Pete Dunne, Kevin Nash, and Jeff Jarrett all on the same show. And it was just an average, not average, but just a normal Friday night type of show for these guys. So I was like, okay, so these are pretty wild companies. So with the Impact, that door is kind of there. I haven't knocked on it. I'm testing the waters before I say anything. But Scott moved on to Impact afterwards when Global Force shut down and Jeff Jarrett had his problems. I had already kind of left at that point and was waiting my surgery.
Okay. Was this when Jeff Jarrett came to RCW?
This was right before that. Okay. So when Jeff Jarrett came to RCW, I was on a show with him 5.5 months before that. So that's why when I heard the story, I saw him at his worst. I feel bad for the man. I'm happy he's overcome it because it was dangerous. He could have killed himself, but
Well,
Hey, he.
I'm happy he overcame it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've told stories about the time that I approached Jeff Jarrett 10 minutes before the show was going to start just to find out how much he weighed, and he spent half an hour making fun of me. So there's literally 20 minutes where people were like downstairs going, "We want the show," because I was ring announcing, right? So this is why I needed his weight, and he's like, "What do you mean you don't know how much I weigh?" And yeah, it was just
Oh yeah,
a
the
whole
old
situation.
GOOSW. Yeah,
Yeah,
there you
but
go.
I don't hold it against him or anything, because like I got a
No.
cool story about that one time that
Mm-hmm.
former Intercontinental Champion Jeff Jarrett made fun of me for half an hour.
Yeah.
Like,
I when I went to go talk to him at one of the shows, it was after the show, and it was just me, him, and Scott in a locker room, and I just said hi. We were just talking about whatever. I could tell he maybe had already had a couple. It was after the show, but he started asking me, it was like, do you ever have like a dream that you're not ready to wrestle, but your music's playing and you're sitting there panicking? And he's like, this is how I feel right now. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he's just like, yeah, I was like, yeah, I have had that dream where you're sitting there, your boots aren't on, but like, what the fuck? Like, he's like, yeah, so this is how I feel right now. And it's like, all right, man. Like, I don't know why you're panicking. And it was just, yeah. So I mean, I was on shows with him in 2006 as well, and he was a different guy then. He was a lot of fucking fun then. He's definitely a guy that's like a blast to be around. At the same time, his demons, when they were in control, nobody's really fun to be around at those times.
yeah, for sure. And like I say, I'm very happy that he's worked as his
Mm-hmm.
problems out for sure. Uh, I did ask you about like inroads with TNA, but have you ever had any opportunities to like do tryouts with WWE? Have you been on any like? Have you been like an extra guy on Raw, or have you had any matches on like
No,
Velocity or anything cool like that?
nothing cool like that. I've been extras. They flew me and paid me. They flew me down and paid me to do a camp in 2013, and then ever since then, they kind of used me as extra. After I've never had a match though. We had a dark match, kind of at FCW, but you can't even count that. There was like 15 people there. It was like this is WWE development. There's like 10, 15 people in the crowd because we were the pre-show. So they were testing the cameras. If you're in the ring and you're doing stuff and the lights start flickering because they're testing the lights, they're like, oh, feel like a piece of crap. But yeah, I did a 3-day camp. It was amazing. I don't really want to get into it, but man, it was completely changed my wrestling afterwards. Everything, like when you get basically it's a 3-day in-depth seminar where guys like Regal and Bill DeMott and Joey Mercury and Billy Gunn are like pounding Norman Smiley are pounding this stuff into you, and they're focusing on you. You're not just an extra number. They're trying to get these guys jobs. So it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do for sure was that camp, because I just ruptured my bicep tendon 4 months before the camp. So then I did it because I was worried by saying if I wasn't ready, I'd lose my opportunity. So I kind of got
Yeah.
screwed there because I should have experience, and I thought I did a great job. And like I was able to meet Dusty Rhodes and do a promo in front of him, and that's one takeaway I have, is that like a promo for Dusty, it was like, and for the promos they said,
Hold on, sorry, you're breaking up real bad here. Just wanted to give it a second and see if it can buffer in.
Still good.
All right, so you were saying you got to do a promo in front of Dusty Rhodes. That sounds amazing to me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because like I was also, they give everybody numbers, so I was number 1. So I had to do everything first, which is also a bit of a mind fuck. I don't know if they did that to fuck with me or not, because like I was number 1, Adam Cole was number 2, Roderick Strong was number 3, Jesse Neal was number 4. And so I was like, does this mean something or not? Because like the 4 guys were like, or at least those 3 guys to me were the top 3 guys at the camp, and then I was the other one. I was like, what the fuck? And then like 5, 6, whatever. But so with the promo, they didn't want wrestling promos, so I did a promo about how I strangled a bear that killed my father with my bare hands or something ridiculous like that. And so, because I wanted to make everybody laugh.
It was just like improv.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff.
So when I hit my time, and I hit the time right on the mark, which was like kind of luck. And then after the promo, Dusty's like, as ridiculous as everything you said, and like he goes, I believed the words coming on your mouth. He goes, I believed everything you said from how it sounded, but like I knew for a fact you didn't kill a bear. But he goes, that was good. That's what we want. We want believability. You can say whatever you want. Went on talking about it for a while, and then he had me cut another wrestling promo after. So I thought that was pretty cool because a lot of guys, like you did the one promo and Dusty, like, okay, good. And then you didn't get called back again. So they called me again. And he passed away, like I want to say a couple months or a year after that. So I was so grateful to get that opportunity with him.
I know. That's incredible. Like Dusty Rhodes is like one of the guys where if like I'm looking for new shtick to add to my stuff, I'll like watch like Dusty Rhodes matches and stuff, and I've legitimately just like straight up stolen things from him. And like,
man, yeah.
But it's like this is because it's all classic great stuff, you know. And I find that like his promos too are like some of the best promos. Him and Mick Foley are two of my favorites.
Yeah, they're two guys that just you believed their words and you felt their fire and their passion. So that's what made them stand out. Not even so much the actual physical words they use, just their tone, their passion, their fire, the look on their face. You know, that's what makes me a believer in those guys and why you should watch how they do promos, because you don't necessarily need to take like the hard times promo, but you can take the message and how he said it and spoke it, and you can take that and add it to your promo. And I think that's invaluable experience for people.
It's more so about how it feels than about what he said.
Exactly.
Yeah. 100%. I love all that kind of stuff. All right, Bobby. So you are 33 now. You've been wrestling for nearly 20 years. You're on the comeback trail just after hip surgery. Do you have any aspirations beyond just getting back into the regular rigmarole of Alberta wrestling? Do you want to go and travel back to Manitoba and Ontario again? And
I will definitely be in BC, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario for sure. Wrestling, guaranteed at times. I plan before I stop at least to go to all these places that I've wrestled before and at least kind of give them, maybe for my own sake, that whole one last match. You know, my last time I'll be in here, my last time I'll be in there, because I don't know if I'm really going to be as aggressive as I was before. It's going to be just kind of how my body holds up for the first little while. Right now, instead of goals of like getting places, I have a handful of guys I want to wrestle before I, like bigger names, not just local guys, before I call it quits. And so that's my goal, is just try and get matches with my friends that I've never gotten to wrestle before I do call it quits. And then whatever else happens.
Who are some of the bigger name guys that you would like to wrestle before you have to pack it in there?
I'd like to wrestle Paul London for sure. We've been talking a lot, and I'd love to get in the ring with him. Definitely guys like, you know, Rene Dupree, and for sure. I'd like to wrestle like Hannibal from Ontario. I thought it'd be kind of an interesting match.
The guy that just like, didn't he just like nearly kill a dude or something?
Yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun. I'd like to wrestle James Storms because he was just here just a little while ago. I think that'd be a lot of fun as well. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I made a little list on Twitter about a couple of local Ontario guys I'd like to wrestle. They were kind of on it. But those guys are kind of like, now I'm at a level where I want to make those matches important, and I want to make that my goal as opposed to trying to wrestle 100 shows in a year or something ridiculous like that, because I want to go for quality matches so that I can look back at these last little bit post hip surgery and go, man, I can't believe I was able to come back from hip surgery and wrestle at this level. So that's kind of gonna be my goal.
Yeah. I mean, it would be pretty disappointed if you start watching your matches back and going, oh, yeah, I really shouldn't have had that hip surgery.
Nope.
Look at the way I'm moving. Like,
exactly.
Like,
so.
You don't want that. But I honestly don't think there's any risk of that. Like, I've been in. You were recently wrestling on one of the shows I was on out in Onion Lake, and like I say, you're fresh off hip surgery, but you easily, hands down, had the best physique of anyone in the locker room.
That's crazy. Wavell Star was on that show. That's a hard guy to beat, but man, I've given him a run for his money now.
Yeah. It was either it was him or you, and then the next guy down would have probably been like Isaac Takeover, as far as like guys that are like totally jacked.
Yeah.
Metal's gotten in really good shape lately too. So Can't leave him off the list. But yeah, no, you're doing some really good stuff. Your next match that you have on the docket, what is that, and where can people check that out?
So July 13th, I'll be in Calgary, Can-Am at the back alley. I'm going to be wrestling Massive Damage. And then July 29th at the Rec Room for LPW, me and my first match ever with Ty Jackson. So that one's will be a lot of fun.
Oh, TY, yeah. That'll be great. I love TY. Like, I do some training with him and stuff, and he's so versatile. He can do anything. Like, I literally watched him jump off the turnbuckle post. He was perched up on the post like a bird, jumped, turned himself around backwards, landed on the buckle, then did a moonsault into a senton, and I was like, oh.
I'll tell him he can do that, and I'll catch him for sure. Yeah, you know, it's funny. Every time I mentioned I was wrestling him, I was like, it's going to be good. So the pressure's on, TY. Hopefully I don't drag it down, buddy.
Yeah, no, I saw him do that in training, and I've been waiting for him to bust it out ever since. I was like, are you going to do that to John Morrison? And he was like, no, I don't think John Morrison will let me do it to him. And I was like, yeah, that's
he would have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, he would have been the guy that he would have been the one guy that would be like willing to do any crazy, ridiculous. He's very much like, well, when it comes to crazy wrestling ideas, John Morrison's like Ted, where he's willing to do the stupidest, craziest things just to try it.
Well, I saw that.
Isn't it a piece of shit?
I saw that Heavy Metal gave him the razor's edge, but he was inverted, so it's like belly to back or whatever.
Yeah,
spiked him right down onto his head.
That's what he wanted.
Then I talked to Metal, and Metal was like, "Oh, that was his idea." Like,
yeah, I know.
Okay.
I talked to him too about that, and I said like, I go like, that's definitely not something you would do, and it looked like he couldn't keep control of himself. And he's like, yeah, it was his idea too. And it's like, he tried to do it with Samoa Joe, and Joe's like, no. I was like, that's probably why Joe said no. Guy can't take his own move, you know? But yeah, that was him. He likes that kind of stuff, you know, God bless him.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anyway, Bobby, we have been going very close here to an hour now. So I am going to, I'm going to just say thank you very much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure to have you on here. I guess I should, before we go, I should mention that you are, of course, married to Kat Von Hees, who beat me up last weekend. We actually, we had she told you about that, eh?
I also could have just guessed, you know. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, we had a tremendous amount of fun, and I really hope I get to wrestle with Kat again soon.
Perfect. Yeah, she said she had a fun match too, so she just accidentally kicked you really hard.
It's wrestling. People get kicked in the face once in a while. It wasn't the first time, and it won't be the last.
You see my scar right there? You can't really see it. Yep, exactly.
Is that from wrestling with Kat?
That is from wrestling. You would think. No, that's from wrestling with Big Jess. Was my checkmark scar. It's like right. You can kind of see it a little bit. It's right when my hair splits and it kind of comes down right there. It's hidden now. Yeah, you might be able to see it a little bit there. There, see? Right there.
Well, there you go, folks.
Nice. So nice checkmark scar on my face. It happens. That's wrestling.
Yeah, right on. Alrighty. So I just I wanted to say thank you for coming on the show. Tell Kat I say hello, and hopefully I'll get to see you out at some more RCW shows coming up. Hopefully I'll be able to come and check out the Love Wrestling stuff.
For sure.
For those of you that are watching, again, Bobby has a match coming up next week for Can-Am. That's Wednesday at the Back Alley Club.
You got it. Yep.
And then July the 29th at the Rec Room for Love Wrestling here in Edmonton.
Yep.
So you go check out those shows. And, of course, hopefully Bobby will get booked on even more shows. And hopefully one of these days me and you will get to wrestle each other.
One day, man. I hope so.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, buddy. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for coming on. This has been Kyle Shaw, aka the Canadian Goose, with Bobby Sharp on the first ever edition of Love Wrestling's Monday Night Shaw.